And a good Thursday afternoon, everyone. We are coming to you this afternoon from Bishop Watterson High School for week 4 of the high school football season. I'm Dave Purpura, along with Jarrod, Ulrey, and our special guest to begin our Facebook Live this week is Eagles coach Brian Kennedy. Coach, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on, fellas. I appreciate it.
You guys are 2-1. You're going to head over to Hilliard Derby tomorrow night to take on Wheelersburg. You're coming off a nice win. I guess they're all nice wins, but a close one over Walsh Jesuit. When you look back at the 3 weeks, what are the things that stands out to you as to why you guys are in this position right now at 2-1?
You know, I give credit to our seniors. We got a very good senior class, good leaders, and you know, they've worked really hard in the off season. You know, when we talk about the culture of our program, you got to have the seniors buying into it, and they have, and I think it's trickled down to the younger guys. And you know, honestly, you know, there were some games last year that we just didn't finish. And so that's kind of been our theme in the offseason this season is finishing. And so far, I think we've done a pretty good job.
Well, Watterson's obviously had a very successful past. You guys have won some state titles. Last few years, it's been some rougher times for you guys. As a Watterson grad, this has obviously got to mean a lot to you personally to kind of see this program, you know, get back to where you guys want it. Is what we're seeing right now, is this kind of maybe the beginning of what you guys are trying to get to in this program?
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, you're right. You touched on the tradition. I mean, 4 state championships, number of playoff appearances, league titles, everything. I mean, that's Watterson football. You know, and obviously, you know, we want to get back to that winning tradition. You know, this year with 35 kids and half of them sophomores, you know, you're not quite sure what you're going to get because a lot of the guys haven't played varsity football before. So you're not sure when those bright lights go on what to expect. But I mean, certainly, I mean, we've done some good things. But you know, we're only week 3. I mean, 2 wins. You know, that's great. But I mean, we got to continue that throughout the season and beyond.
And it'll be a stiff test tomorrow night. Yeah. Wheelersburg, they came up. They lost to Hartley a couple weeks ago. What are the things that stand out to you about them? Of course, they're the defending Division 5 state champions. What do you see first off about this team and the kind of test it can provide you?
Well, you know, it is a football. Wheelersburg is a football program. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to, you know, look in the dictionary under what a football program should be, it's Wheelersburg. They're well coached. Their kids are disciplined. They play hard. You know, they're not going to beat themselves. When we watch them on film, you don't see there's not a glaring weakness or something, hey, we can exploit or something like that. I mean, we've got to play our best game to try and compete with them.
Was there anything that Hartley did on the film? Did you guys look at that film? Or was...
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we exchanged films, so we got the chance to look at the Hartley film. You know, Hartley's a little bit different team than us. You know, some of the things they did, you know, we kind of looked at, but, you know, it's 2 weeks later. Wheelersburg's a different team, we're a different team, so you know, we think we have a good game plan.
All right, Coach. Well, hey, appreciate
the time.
Fellas,
I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's Coach Brian Kennedy joining us here, and the Eagles beginning practice here in just a few minutes to take on Wheelersburg tomorrow night. We did mention that game will not be played at the usual spot of Hagley Field. It's going to be Hilliard Derby.
They are having 3 games at Hagley this year, but you know, there's a couple of them they're having some different places. I mean, they're going to have next week. They're going to be at Ohio Dominican, so some nice places. And Derby's obviously a really nice field over there. So
and it'll probably fit a crowd that's coming to a game like
this. Oh
yeah,
yeah, that's true. He mentioned a lot of things about the sophomores, that he's really high on that class. They have a sophomore quarterback named Jacob Hoyne, son of former Ohio State quarterback Bobby Hoyne.
Okay.
And you know, he's looked really good so far. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he develops throughout the rest of the season for them. And they've got some they've got a lot of other young guys in some key roles for them. And this will be a real good test for them. Wheelersburg is you know, like everybody, they lose a few guys from the past teams, but they've got a quarterback returning, Trent Sally, who threw for 35 touchdowns last year. So you know they're probably going to be pretty high powered out there.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jacob Hoyne. Tommy Bear was our player of the week, I believe.
That's right.
He came off a big effort in the win over Walsh Jesuit.
240 all-purpose yards for him last week. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
absolutely
exciting.
Absolutely. Some other big games this week. We were in week 4, excuse me.
Yeah.
2 3-0 teams are going to be facing off. Pickerington North and Westerville Central. I believe you wrote the preview for this game.
One of the other guys did. But
okay.
I know quite about that. I know quite a bit about them.
Nice offense against a good defense.
Yeah. Well, both teams are 3-0. I know from reading, I believe it was Frank Lorena's story about that actually. Coach Morrison of Westerville Central talked about how both teams' statistics are very similar up to this point in time. Now, what does that mean? Maybe it doesn't mean that much, but it's interesting. It's an interesting correlation that both teams 3-0, both teams produced a lot of offense, and their defenses have been real good. Now I will say I think Pickerington North's schedule's been quite a bit tougher so far. So this is going to be Westerville Central's biggest test by far up to this point.
North has beaten what? Olentangy Liberty, Dublin Jerome, and Olentangy Orange in that order. Chris Scott had 4 touchdowns last week. I believe he had 101 yards.
Well, Mike Lowry threw for 6 touchdowns. So,
yeah.
I mean, this has got the potential to be. I mean, it's not necessarily the potential. I mean, it's already here. I mean, it's a pretty high-powered offense they've got.
Sure it is. Absolutely.
That's going to be a real test for Westerville Central. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Chris Scott. I know Westerville Central's got LeBron Davis had a real nice game for them this past week.
Yep.
So. Yeah, real interesting, and I think it's great that a program like Westerville Central can lose a longtime coach, and they're not taking a step back this year. That's good for them.
They certainly are not. 2 veteran coaches are going to match wits up in Powell tomorrow night. It's going to be 3-0 Hilliard Davidson against 1-2 Olentangy Liberty. When I was reading through this, I mean, that 1-2 is kind of deceptive, and I understand Liberty's had some adversity, but the teams they've lost to are Pickerington North and Cleveland Glenville.
Right.
This is another one of those differing styles, and Mitchell Oakley came back for Liberty, I believe, last week.
He did, and excuse me. Yes, he came back for that game, and I believe he threw for about 150-some yards in that game for Liberty against Glenville. Or I'm sorry, in their game this past week, they beat Marysville. Mm-hmm. Now these are a couple of coaches, Steve Hale from Olentangy Liberty and Brian White. These guys know each other really well. They've gone against each other 6 times as head coaches, and also a couple times as assistant coaches, or when Hale was an assistant several years ago. So they, excuse me, they know each other well. And one thing that Coach Hale said was, he's like, well, they don't really change a lot over there. They're good every year, which is true. Mm-hmm. And does that make it easier to plan for? Maybe, but that doesn't make it easier to stop. And
sure.
Davidson seems like they're being very efficient right now with the way that they're moving the ball. They have lots of different guys that are running the ball for them, and obviously we know their defense is great. I mean, they held Bradley to 10 points last week.
And those are the only 10 points they've given up all season. They started the season
right.
with two shutouts in a row. Westerville North and Canal in a showdown between Division II teams that are 2-1. And I say showdown, I know it's early in the year, but both of them are looking for some potentially valuable playoff points.
I was thinking the same thing,
this
yeah.
one.
I mean, and I know that, would we have thought Westerville North would be 2-1 at this point? I'm not sure. I mean, I think that we thought Canal Winchester was going to be a pretty good team this year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is a matchup it's really big. I mean, really for week 4. I mean, the winner goes to 3-1, and you think about the fact that Canal Winchester is in the OCC Capital, which is a division that they're going to be very competitive in. So if they go to 3-1, I mean, that would set them up really well. And then Westerville North is in the OCC Buckeye, which is, maybe it looks a lot, fairly balanced this year with some of the teams so far, kind of going through some ups and downs. I mean, Liberty, like you said, is 1-2.
Orange has struggled.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah.
Canal Winchester doing a story next week for that edition about them switching from a 3-man to a 4-man front on defense. We'll see how good that is at stopping the run tomorrow night. That's something that Westerville North is going to want to establish. Canal Winchester doing well with its second-year starting quarterback, Jack Beeler. Many options. Tyler Toledo not only scored 2 touchdowns last week, had a couple fumble recoveries and an interception on defense. A very strong win, a very strong game for him. And you mentioned about North as well, just something, this is my 6th season covering them. They've gotten off to good starts before.
Okay.
It's sustaining it past this point in the season that really has been an issue for them.
Right.
It just seems like they've really started to struggle in weeks 4 and 5. So I'm sure it would be a good mental hurdle for them to get over when you're looking at trying to improve going into the second half in a very tough league.
Well, they got a new coaching staff over there,
yes,
so they don't
Johnson.
Have that same, the same struggle of the past in their
That's
head.
right.
So fresh start, maybe.
Absolutely. We mentioned Hilliard Derby earlier. Well, one reason that the Watterson game is being held there is because Derby is on the road. They're going to be taking on Hilliard Bradley. That's actually the OCC Cardinal Division opener.
That's right.
That division starts earlier than everybody else just because of more teams involved. The winner of this will take second place in Hilliard because Davidson went 2-0 against the other ones. No offense, but just the standings. That's how they're going to work out. This is the 3rd consecutive week that the Hilliard teams have played each other. And this is a big one for different reasons. Not only is it a rivalry, but there are league implications now for these two
absolutely.
teams.
You know, Bradley is a team that it's kind of hard to get a gauge of who they are at this point. I mean, they played this team from out of, they played Finley, I believe, in week 1, and that was like a really, you know, a high-scoring game.
Overtime, yep.
And then they come and they played Davidson really well. They weren't able to score a lot of points, but of course nobody has been, like we said. They've got a new quarterback this year. They seem like maybe their strength this year is going to be on defense, where they've got Cannon Blauser and Grant Hummel at linebacker. So, and of course, they're going to have to stop the run. That's going to be, and they know that heading into this matchup. They play Darby every year, and I believe it's like 6-4 all time. I wrote this down. No, I'm sorry. Darby leads the series 4-3. So,
okay,
a lot of good games over the years.
And this is, of course, Bradley's preparing for kind of a similar scheme 2 weeks in a row because they played Davidson last week. Connor Jones had 135 yards and a touchdown for Darby and a 1-point win over Lancaster, which still is seeking its first one, incidentally, and they've got a tough schedule coming up in that OCC Ohio division. Bradley committed 4 turnovers last week. That's a stat that really stood out to me. They hadn't lost a game in the regular season in almost 2 years. That's 17
That's
game
a great point.
winning streak snap.
That's a great point.
We'll see how it goes tomorrow night over in Hilliard. Another crosstown rivalry will be seen in Dublin for the second week in a row. It'll be 2-1 Scioto and 1-2 Jerome. And kind of like that 1-2 I mentioned with Olentangy Liberty, the 1-2 with Jerome might be kind of deceiving as well. They beat Watterson to start the year, and then now they've lost the past 2 weeks to Pickerington North and Dublin Coffin.
Yeah, I mean, we think that Pick North and Dublin Coffin are probably 2 of the 5 best teams in Central Ohio. So, you look at Dublin Scioto. We thought heading into this season, hey, maybe they're a sleeper type of team, and they lost to New Albany, but they are 2-1. So this is a good proving type of game for them.
Very well, yeah, it could be. I mean, I watched them against New Albany a couple of weeks ago. They were able to run the ball with some effectiveness, but New Albany was just really good. I mean, that's a big place to pull away in that.
Pete, I'm not sure.
Relic,
okay. Yeah, he had a really big game last week. I mean, Scioto beat Big Walnut by 2 points, which maybe we'll get a chance to talk to about Big Walnut one of these weeks coming up, because they seem like they're an improved team. So beating them by 2 points might not actually be a bad win. That's probably a pretty good win.
One of the teams you cover is Reynoldsburg. They're 3-0 for the first time since 1995. I was a senior in high school. I think you were just starting it this week, around the time that happened.
That's
I want to
true.
say. But it's been 23 years since they were 3-0, and they've got a chance to go to 4-0 against a team that's upset-minded in Central Crossing this week. They're 2-1, coming off a big win over Grove City. But boy, Reynoldsburg just appears to be a team that's continuing to click on all cylinders.
Well, everybody I talk to thinks, hey, maybe Reynoldsburg's the real deal here. So, I mean, as we've talked about before, they've got lots of Division I recruits on defense. They've got Rashawn Rice, who's headed to Purdue at wide receiver. I was looking at their stats a little bit ago. They actually had 7 different players carry the ball the other night. So Reynoldsburg did. And that was against Marion Franklin. And some of the wins that Reynoldsburg has, I mean, they look pretty good. I mean, Marion Franklin, Licking Heights, I mean, those are good wins. Licking Heights beat New Albany last week. So Central Crossing appears to be a very improved team. So we'll see what kind of a game they can do.
They lost close to Marion Franklin in week 1 by only 2 points.
That's right.
And had one of the better performances individually last week in the area. Anthony Lowe returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, had a touchdown catch. His only catch of the night was 53 yards and a touchdown, and had an interception to to end Grove City's final drive in that ball game. A couple other names we want to mention before we get out of here. Reedy is playing its Mid-State League Ohio Division opener. They're 1-2. Yeah, asterisk, as they take on 3-0 Grandview Heights tomorrow night.
The reason I wanted to make sure we highlighted this game is because on paper you see Grandview's 3-0, Reedy's 1-2, so you might be thinking Grandview's the favorite, but I would say this is kind of a coin flip type of game because Reedy beat them last year. Reedy really has a lot of the same guys back. I do think Grandview's improved, but Reedy has played a very difficult schedule so far. So they're going to come in and they need to win these type of games so that they can make the division. I believe it's Division 5. They're in Division 5 playoffs, whereas Grandview's Division 6. But you got to figure Grandview's going to get a lot more wins. So this is the type of game that would be very beneficial for Reedy if they could win the game. And I expect it to be a very close game.
Grandview Heights is outscored, and it would be different for Grandview Heights because they've outscored their first 3 opponents 139-26.
Yeah.
And all of those 26 points were given up last week against Zanesville Rosecrans. You're going to be at Gahanna and New Albany tomorrow night. New Albany's coming off its first loss of the year. Gahanna has a pretty tough schedule. Any early thoughts on that game you're going to see?
Just mostly that Gahanna, this is an extremely important game for them. And reason being, they know that they have Westerville Central in week 5, and then they start the OCC Ohio schedule, which you got Reynoldsburg, Pickerington North, and Pickerington Central down the line. So another loss for them would be very, very bad for any kind of playoff hopes that they might have. I mean, not saying they can't beat any of those teams, but if they could somehow, the fact that they've got 2 losses is you know, they're going to have to figure out a way to get to 5-5 or 6-4 to have any kind of hopes of making it. And you know, don't be, yes, they lost a lot, but they've got a lot of confidence that they can give New Albany a very good game. They beat them fairly easily last year. They did. So I expect it to be a very close game.
I want to mention as well, 2-1 Centennial will be home against 1-2 Northland. You have the Worthington showdown with Thomas at 1-2. Kilbourne's still seeking its first win. They're 0-3. This one intrigues me as well. Chillicothe's 3-0, and they come up to take on Hartley, who's 2-1.
Well, yeah, Chillicothe doesn't play the same type of schedule that Hartley does. So I think that if they give Hartley a test, I think it would be a surprise, to be honest with you. I would expect Hartley to win that fairly easily.
We'll see. Ron Hinton and Brad Birchfield used to match wits to an extent.
Yeah,
Ron Hinton coached at Amanda. Brad Birchfield was an assistant coach at Canal Winchester back a while ago as well. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us. We don't know where we'll be next week, of course, but we'll figure it out over the weekend and let you know. We will advertise it on social media. Jarrod, another week down.
That's right.
4 down, 6 to go in the regular season. For Jarrod, Ulrey, I'm Dave Purpura. So long, everybody.